me ask you guys a question. Who is the best team in college football going into this season? Is it Georgia or Ohio State? I believe the answer is going to shock you, but I'm going to have to say it's Ohio State. Offensively, when you compare Ohio State's offense to Georgia's, Ohio State overall has the more talented offense. At quarterback, you got to give it to Georgia. Carson Beck is nowhere close to Will Howard, okay? Carson Beck is arguably the best quarterback in college football, depending on who you ask. Will Howard, he's above average. He's good enough to win you games if you got a good team around him. At running back, though, I don't even think it's even close. Ohio State has Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, two of the best running backs in the nation. Georgia's running back room is deep. They did get Trevor Etienne from the transfer portal, but Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, you got two top 5 backs on one team. I don't even know how that was allowed to happen. They got to outlaw Ohio State's ability to spend in the transfer portal, man, because it's just utterly ridiculous. And that wide receiver, tight end, I mean, some people are probably going to disagree and say that Georgia's wide receiver room is just as good as Ohio State, but the Buckeyes got Jeremiah Smith, who is probably the best high school recruit at receiver that we've seen since Julio Jones nearly a decade and some change ago. And they also do a really good job at developing that position. They pretty much are the new wide receiver U in college football. All Georgia really has is Dominic Lovett. They also got some highly recruited guys, but their wide receiver room from a talent and depth standpoint isn't as good as what Ohio State's is. On the O-line, we got to give it to Georgia. Everybody starting this year is probably going to be playing in the NFL. They're going to get drafted high. But overall, I give it to Ohio State. You not only have the better running back room, wide receiver room than Georgia, but you got a better offensive coordinator than what Georgia has. Ohio State hired Chip Kelly. I don't care how you guys feel about Chip Kelly's tenure at UCLA. That dude won there. And he's one of the pioneers of what college football is today with all these spread, no-huddle offenses. And if you give this dude a great team with all these talented pieces to use, he's going to cook. So Ohio State has the best offensive coordinator in college football, the best running back and wide receiver room in the nation offensively. I give the edge to the Buckeyes offense. Now let's move on to the defense. I still love Ohio State over Georgia. The only position that Georgia is better at than Ohio State, in my opinion, this year is linebacker, because you do have Small Munden. You also got Raylan Wilson, who was a freshman all-SEC selection last year. C.J. Allen is also a guy to look out for. And Ohio State has to replace Tommy Eichenberg and Still Chambers, who were two of the best linebackers in the Big Ten last year. But outside of that, their defensive line is deeper compared to Georgia's. You got Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, JTT. Both of those dudes should easily end up being first-round, second-round picks in next year's draft. Georgia has Michael Williams and Nazir Stackhouse, but their D-line isn't as good as what it normally is. And with Ohio State, with the talent and depth that you have on the interior D-line, that's what gives you the advantage in that department as compared to the Bulldogs. And the secondary, Georgia always produces really good defensive backs. But Ohio State has more experience at that position this year. You got Denzel Berg. You got another good cornerback with the complicated last name to pronounce. You got Latham Ransom. You just got Caleb Downs from the portal. I'm taking Ohio State's defense over Georgia and Ohio State's offense. And to me, Ohio State is clearly the best team entering this season. I understand that last year they lost their bowl game to Missouri, but who cares? It's based off talent. And if Ohio State plays up to the level of talent that they have on this roster this year, they should easily be able to win the national championship this year. Even if they got to play Georgia. This is the year that Ryan Day should be able to be holding up that championship gold this year. There is way too much talent across the board for Ohio State to continue to come up short this year. If I was to do a top 25, I would put the Buckeyes over Georgia this year. Yes, Georgia is good enough to win it all, but the gap between Ohio State and Georgia, there is no gap. They're pretty much on the same level. But from a talent standpoint, if we're just going top to bottom across the board like what I just did, the Buckeyes are a better squad than what Georgia has rolling into the upcoming season.